Waiters and waitresses. What's the most awkward first date you had to witness firsthand? Story 1. Not a first date, but a last date. We had a guy who would bring his secretary in for lunch 3 times a week. Our per-person average at lunch was $125. Everyone knew he was married because he'd bring his wife and kids to dinner 3 times a week at $200 per person average, often on the same day. Well, one day he realized he needed to dump his secretary. He did it at our restaurant. We all happened to know because she started crying so hard, and they were the center of attention for everyone to see. To make things weirder, he did it early in the meal and he drove her there. So she came and hung out with the employees until his lunch was over, acting like everything was totally fine, even though her tears were welling up with every word. He was back in the restaurant with her within a week. Then we never saw them again. Never again with the wife and kids either. Always wondered if he got caught in the end. With all the bad choices this guy is making, I'm wondering how he could possibly be a boss. The fact that he never showed up again with the girl or with his family led me to believe he probably wasn't a boss any longer. How long had this relationship been going on? How long did the marriage last? Story 2. In short, he got there early and let me know it was a first date, which was a lunch date. When she got there, they started chatting, and he ordered a drink and she ordered a water. After a few minutes, he skipped on appetizers and every so often would go by to see if they would like to order. She would open her mouth to speak, and he would interrupt with something like they were fine at the moment. Well, this went on for a while. Even tried to just take hers, but he would insist they were okay for now. So he kept ordering drinks, and she kept sipping water. After an hour or so, she said she had to go and just left. He asked me if he did something wrong. Answered honestly with, since it was a lunch date, she probably didn't have too much for breakfast. And if you offer a lunch date, she's probably expecting to eat, and you wouldn't allow her to order. She's probably starving. He sat there and drank till the end of my shift. Lunch date. The activity is in the name of the activity. What was this guy thinking when he kept waving off the waiter? Did he think this was some sort of power move? Was he actually ignorant of the fact that he wasn't allowing this person to order food? Very weird. Story 3. Tequila bar. She was pretty loud. Not that it was necessary, given how close they were. After some get-to-know-you chit-chat, he apparently says something that she doesn't quite agree with. Big deal, right? Nope. Her. Okay, I think we should probably just start this over. Like, actually reset the day. Him. What are you? Her. Gets up, takes 3 steps to the door, turns around and comes back to their seat with an outstretched hand. Hi, I'm Name. Him. You've got to be kidding me. Seriously? Her. I'm so glad we could try this place out. Great to see you. Him. Hey? Just sit down. And then I tried my hardest not to die of secondhand embarrassment. It was an awkward move at best, but clearly not what this guy was willing to play along with. What did this guy say? And this was kind of a power move, if I'm being honest. This girl could have just up and left, but she actually decides to take charge and reset the date. She exerted control over the whole situation. Respect. Pretty boss move. Story 4. Not a first date, but when I first started bartending, I had a woman who was very obviously stood up. She got there, ordered a drink, and would look around every once in a while, saw her use a phone a couple of times, and her mood just got sadder, until she finally put her phone upside down on the bar and ordered food an hour later. I wiped what I could off her bill, then paid the rest myself. Told her it was on the house. In my career, it's happened 2 more times. Once with another woman, and once with a guy. Did the same thing. Nothing sucks more than eating alone and defeated. Edit. Thank you for the upvotes and nice comments. Made my night. Edit 2. Seriously, guys, you're so sweet. Not gonna lie, today was kind of rough, but everyone has brightened it so much. I really appreciate it. Story 5. I used to work at a sushi restaurant in Anchorage, and there was a girl who would come about once every few weeks with a different guy. Every single time she ordered a hoitopap, which is like a rice salad sashimi bowl, and it was giant. I've only ever seen a handful of people ever finish the entire thing in one sitting. She would finish the whole thing with chopsticks and always ask for a spoon towards the end. It was always fun watching the guys look stunned when she finished. One day she came with this dude that ordered what she did, and when they both finished the bowl, they ordered another and split it. Wish they had ended up together, but she came back with a different guy a couple weeks later. Edit. She never paid. Edit. More common pronunciations are waitapap, hodabop, and hodeobop. Story 6. I worked at a bar where like 50% of our business was from Tinder dates. This one time, two guys came in separately and sat at different tables by themselves along the same wall. They were both facing the door and clearly waiting for dates. Eventually, a woman comes in, walks up to the closest guy, sits down, and they start chatting. They start ordering drinks. After 5 minutes, the other guy, who's still waiting by himself, gets up and walks over to the couple. He says, "Hi," to the girl and is like, aren't you so-and-so? I'm so-and-so. We were supposed to be meeting? She was clearly flustered. Lots of awkward laughter, and she got up and went with the other guy to the other table. Couple minutes later, the other woman shows up and sits with the first guy, and he tells her all about it. This is just sitcom wacky stuff. How did this happen in real life? Plus, I don't think it was the smartest move for this guy to tell this woman about everything that happened. I don't think a girl wants to walk into a date knowing that she was not recognized for who she was for someone else. I don't know. I don't know how the rest of the date went. Story 7. Lady comes in to get a table. She says she's expecting a man and gives us a brief description. He shows up about 10 minutes later and she starts saying she knew it. He looks very surprised and scared. I took a drink order and when I get back, they're gone. The hostess fills me in that in my absence, they had a heated but civil exchange. The man was married to the lady's cousin. Also, the lady was married. Apparently, they had been texting for a while after meeting via Craigslist personals. I'm assuming the married but looking section. Don't know if they hooked up in the end or just called the whole thing off. Did they order pina coladas? Story 8. The guy's card declines. I don't want to embarrass him, so I waved him over near the credit card machine so it would look like he needed to go to the bathroom. He told me to try it again, and I assumed he was going to move money over on his app. He went back to his date. Card declines again. The machine prints a receipt that states the reason for decline: insufficient funds. I keep trying 4 more times. I go over to the table and say, "I'm having an issue with the card. Might be our machine. Do you have another?" Walks away with a new card, and it declines. I wave him over. He gets up angrily, and I'm guessing now the date is caught on. He proceeds to berate me, saying that it must be our machines because he knows he has money. He starts making fun of me, questioning if I know what I'm doing. He's doing this in front of his date, I'm guessing to save face. Give me another card. Declined. Story 9. Not a first date, but a guy decided to propose to a stripper from Scores, high-end joint in New York City. She was stunning. Also in fine dining, he gets on one knee and pops the question, and she goes out loud, "Are you freaking kidding me?" He got up and asked for the check. Edit, can't spell. I was once sitting at a nice cafe with my then girlfriend when one guy proposed to this girl. She didn't say anything. She just started crying. At first, people thought she cried because she was happy. That thought disappeared pretty quickly when she started bawling and walking away. Ooh, the cringe is strong with these two guys who definitely need to learn to read the room and read the relationship. The one proposing to a stripper was pretty bad. I think someone needs to explain to him the reality of their relationship. Probably not the stripper, though. She probably still wants to milk him for money. Story 10. Not a first date, but we did have a guy come into our steakhouse on a Saturday night at 7 p.m. with no reservation. He then told us on the spot he was going to propose to his girlfriend. We had to seat them somewhere awful. It was right next to the bathroom. And when he got down on one knee, looking around nervously, absolutely no one noticed. Him and his girlfriend kept waiting for the rest of the restaurant to see them and go quiet or even clap for them. But not a single person noticed. She said yes, looked disappointed, and they went back to dinner like nothing happened. They must not have minded too much because they came back for their 1-year anniversary. This time, he made a reservation. Story 11. A middle-aged couple. Man, 30-minute monologue about the cars he likes, how fast they are, what the challenges are in maintenance. He was literally going non-stop every time past them. Me. Arrives with food, which made him shut up for like 10 seconds. Woman. Taking the sudden silence as her chance to get a word in. Woman. Well, I really like butterflies. Awkward silence. Guy continues his car talk until dessert. Curiously enough, they came back 2 more times over the summer. Story 12. At the end of the dinner, 2 couples on a double date dine and dash. I chased them down, and the girls had no clue. The dates had told them they already paid. The girls ended up paying. The guys had no cash. I worked at a restaurant in high school, along with a number of classmates. A group that we all knew came in to eat, then left without paying. We just gave the manager their home phone numbers so she could speak with their parents. Oh, these must have been the mean kids at school, or at least they must have crossed the people who were working in the restaurant. They must have thought they had a popular enough reputation to be revered and respected. Nope, you're getting busted. Story 13. Just saw one on Valentine's Day. The date seemed to be going very well, actually. Not awkward at all. They talked non-stop. No lulls in conversation. They were laughing, carrying on, and just generally having a good time. In fact, another server and I were laughing about how obnoxiously loud they were. Then I heard the gentleman say, "And obviously you're still not married, right? Please tell me you're not still married." She said, "Well, actually," and then things got very uncomfortable. It must not have been a deal breaker because they stayed at the restaurant another hour until we closed, but they were very quiet for the rest of the night, hardly spoke to each other at all. Story 14. I was the one on the first date. Went to a bar with this guy. Our waitress came up and immediately recognized him. Was super friendly, took our orders and left. While she was gone, he told me they used to date. The rest of the night, they openly flirted with each other. There was no second date. Edit. Thanks for the award, kind stranger. Edit 2. Wow, this is the most awards I've received. Thank you all. Story 15. At the end of the meal, after appetizers, two of the most expensive entrees, a high-priced bottle of wine, and dessert with a bottle of Dom, the man says to me, in front of his date, "Hey man, we're on a first date. What more can I do to guarantee I get action tonight?" The young lady turned deep red with her jaw dropped open, sat down the bill and said, "After asking me that, there's nothing you can do." Fumble at the goal line. This man managed to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. It sounds like everything was going well up until that point. At least the meal was all good. But the meal was all this guy was going to be getting that night. Story 16. Was a server for about a decade. One of my old coworkers would bring all his first dates to the fancy restaurant we worked at because he would always get his meals discounted as per the employee handbook. This started getting tricky when he started dating one of the other servers. Watching her serve a handful of his first dates over the first few weeks of their relationship was always an interesting time. Story 17. I worked as a barista at a coffee shop with a dishwashing sink that brought you face to face with whoever was sitting at the coffee bar across from you. For some reason, so many people chose this spot for their first dates, so I would have to wash dishes and pretend I wasn't literally on the date with them. One time, a person I knew was on their first date with someone and chose that cursed seat across from the dishwashing sink. Because we knew each other, we chatted a little bit, and then as the partition raised between us, they began their date. But I still had dishes to do. So freaking uncomfortable. Story 18. The date I saw started off great. I was playing in a band at a small club. There were about 30 people in the club. A couple who had been sitting close together in a corner booth disappeared together into one of the bathrooms. In between songs, when it was quiet in the club, the bartender yells, "They better not be smashing on my sink." The whole place turns and stares at the bathroom door. And as we're staring, the couple emerges, smiling at first. Then they look around, see everybody staring at them, and their faces turn a deep color of shame. They quickly paid their bill and left. Boo on the bartender. I mean, yeah, they could have broken the sink, but still bad form. Way to out these two people in front of everybody. At least they chose to be private. Have a little compassion, man. Story 19. Didn't happen to me, but I was working while the bartender got to experience it. Guy and girl came in. Super weird chemistry all night. The guy is obviously trying to impress her by being a huge douche, and she just looks like she's pretending to not hate it so the date will end faster. At the end of the night, she says she'll take an Uber home, and he awkwardly leaves without her. She then waits for the bartender to come back over, orders another cocktail, and asks for his phone number. Story 20. A teenage couple sharing an ice cream and holding hands very awkwardly. After they finished the ice cream, they kept talking about their very adventurous, spicy fantasies. They were around 14 years old. Super awkward to have to interrupt them to ask if they want anything else. My spicy fantasy when I was 14 was holding hands. Story 21. I had these two people that were there on a first date. After the appetizers, this poor man got the runs and was going back and forth to the bathroom all night. There were only a few other people in the restaurant at the time, so it was noticeable, and they were chuckling every time he got up. I honestly felt bad for the guy. Any kind of food on a first date is tricky. People have strategies about what they want to eat on a first date. Nothing using your hands so you don't look like you're messy when you're eating. Nothing spicy if you can't handle it. To be honest though, any type of food is risky. This guy proved it. I feel bad for the guy too. Story 22. I legit saw the guy try to roofie the girl, like not even trying to be hidden about it. He did it right in front of me. The girl went to the bathroom and was cleaning the table next to them. I saw him take the powder out and slip it inside the drink. Another thing too, it was a pizza place. Who tries to roofie someone in a pizza place? Edit. Yes, called the cops. Story 23. At a restaurant I worked at, there was a white guy and a black guy on a first date. They were sitting in a booth and having a good time. White guy gets up to go to the bathroom. When he came back, he sat in the wrong booth with a different black guy. Took him a minute to realize it was a different person. The person he was on a date with was not happy at all. They tried to salvage the date, but it didn't work. Story 24. Sat behind a Tinder date in process once at a nice pizza place. The girl spent the entire date talking about her crazy Tinder dates and how often she smashed on the first date, but how the guys were all nuts, and she really hates Tinder, but is giving it another try. Read, she was bat crazy insane. She did about 95% of the talking that night, and I could feel how uncomfortable the guy was without even being able to see him. Is this what's meant by being a pick-me girl? Maybe I'm wrong. Being open to spiciness is definitely not a bad thing, but the crazy vibes on this girl were just all over the place and in your face. I hope that guy noped out of there. Story 25. The guy starts talking about how nice it is in the modern day that you can just date without labels. Woman, in suspiciously chipper voice, responds that sometimes labels are really helpful in defining the boundaries of the relationship. Man, very upbeat, replies that sometimes it's nice just to enjoy your time with someone without having to define anything. It was so hard to listen to, but mad respect to both of them for making their intentions known up front, and in such an amicable way. How'd the date end? Story 26. Not a waitress, but my daughter and I were having dinner at a restaurant, and the table next to us was a family dinner. Mom, dad, and 2 daughters, maybe 10 and 12. The parents took them out to tell them they're getting a divorce. Ultimate dad joke would be to tell the waiter to split the bill. Ooh, that's like sitting next to a crying baby on a flight. Must have been so awkward to have to hear. You want to ignore it, maybe you can ignore it, but eventually you have to listen in. I wonder if the kids started crying. Story 27. Not a first date, but very awkward. Guy comes in with a paid spicy partner and drops a good amount of money on booze at the bar. Then she leaves a few hours later and he informs us that his wife is on her way to meet him for dinner and tips us an extra $200 to keep our mouths shut. Keeping it classy. Story 28. I was bartending this New Year's Eve. Upscale casual cocktail martini joint. Couple sits down. Guy gets a little sloshed, goes to the bathroom, and comes out with his ex's Instagram asking his date if she thought he was hotter than the ex's new boyfriend. Girl tries to give him an out, but he kept doubling down, saying things like, "Well, I think you're hotter than her, so why can't you say it to me?" She was outside at 2 a.m. in tears, waiting for her mom to come pick her up. Story 29. Restaurant in Canada. A couple came in from the USA. Man had a first-gen iPhone, and they haven't been released in Canada yet. Guy at the next table is so enthralled with the device, he won't stop talking to the iPhone man. Talked so much that his date got up without saying anything and walked out the door. Oh man, I wonder if the waiters and waitresses just watched what was happening or tried to intervene. I feel sorry for the guy on the date. This was no fault of his own. I'm sure it started innocent enough with him showing off to the guy, but we're talking about a guy who has no social skills whatsoever if he kept interrupting an obvious date. It had to be obvious. Story 30. My favorite question. It was mostly awkward because the woman was unbelievably demanding and rude, but only when her date wasn't around. Came back with their food and offered a completely over-the-top apology with a tearful garnish. The guy looked at her with horror and asked her what the hell happened, then left. Story 31. I waited on a couple who were clearly on a first date, and the lady was clearly not impressed by the guy she was on the date with. The date was over quick enough, and the guy paid, leaving me with a 5% tip. The next day, the lady came into the restaurant, walked up to me, said, "That was the worst first date I've ever been on, and I was mortified when he stiffed you on the tip," and then handed me a 20. Story 32. In a cafe I worked at a few years ago, a lady who was a regular came in outside of her usual tea time. A few minutes later, a dude came in and they introduced themselves. He had coffee, she had tea. Her tea had 12 sugars in it. At that point, just order a soda or an iced tea. We like our iced tea sweet in America. Or was this America? The story doesn't say. I can't tell. One person ordered coffee, which is more of an American drink, and tea, which is more of an English drink. Whatever. That girl's gonna get diabetes. Story 33. Wasn't the waiter just a nearby patron with good hearing? They were just about done with dinner when she gets a call, tells the cashier she isn't busy, and makes plans to spend the night with another guy, all while Loverboy sat across from her with his jaw on the floor. Story 34. I went over to drop the check and the girl had gone to the restroom. Guy looks at me and says, "My date isn't going as well as I'd hoped. Would you be free to hang out later?" Story 35. Saw a guy hitting on a girl and buying her drinks for the entire night, then realizing she was a paid spicy partner. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.